Okay, I think let's jump into it. We've got a few people with us now. So, hi everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name's April. I'm part of the marketing team here at Towns Web Archiving. I'm going to be your host for today's session, guiding us through the webinar and helping keeping things moving, including managing any questions for our Q&A at the end. So today we're going to be exploring how cemetery and crematorium records can be digitized and transcribed and made accessible securely, both for staff use and for the public. I'll start by quickly introducing my colleagues and the team you're going to be hearing from today. We have John, who will start us off with how we handle digitization and logistics. Nathaniel is then going to take us through transcription and redaction. And finally, Casper will finish off by showing how we turn data into secure staff access and public-facing online search. Couple quick notes of housekeeping before we start. In terms of cameras, please feel free to have yours on and off, whatever you're most comfortable with. We do ask that we have mics off for anyone who's not speaking, just that we can keep background noise down. If you have any questions as you go, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A chat box, but we will be holding the main Q&A at the end so that we get through the first full session first. And finally, the session is being recorded and we'll be able to share it afterwards. So before I begin and pass over to my colleagues, I just wanted to take a moment to introduce Townsweb, provide a bit of context, kind of who we are and what we do. We specialise in helping organisations digitise and unlock access to important historical and operational records, including cemetery and crematorium registers. At a high level, we support a full end-to-end process, digitising physical materials and then transcribing and structuring the information into searchable data. And we then help to publish with our discovery and access platform Passview, through secure platforms and websites so that the data can actually be used. We work with a wide range of organisations, including local authorities, trusts and heritage organisations, particularly those that are responsible for managing sensitive or historical significant collections. Which brings us on to why we're here today. We all know that cemetery and crematorium records are incredibly valuable, not only to families and genealogists, but the organisations that are responsible for maintaining them. The challenge, though, is that many of these records still purely exist in physical form, often fragile, ageing, and at risk of deterioration. On top of that, manual searching through registers can be very time-consuming for staff, especially when there's sort of decades of material to go through. There's, of course, the public expectation and growing demand for online access, and of course, the compliance and privacy aspect with records, including sensitive information. So how do you improve accessibility while protecting personal data? It's really the aim of digitization isn't just preservation, it's about making records usable, searchable and accessible, that's sustainable in the long run. Our solution is simple and built around a very simple solution: logistics and digitization, transcription and redaction, access and publishing. So this is what my colleagues are going to be covering today. So I'll pass over to John now to kick us off.
Okay. So I guess what I'm going to talk about is the first part of the puzzle, which is getting your materials either from where you are or digitizing it in place. But I really don't have to tell you people how much material there can be, whether it's ledgers, whether it's index cards, microfiche, microfilm. For some of our clients, there's massive amounts of physical records that need to be looked after and handled. That's where we come in, of course, because we're quite used to dealing with all this. And the first thing we'll do is, if it's going off site, is we'll send our team in to pack up and take the items to our digitisation studio in Kettering, or we can also set up on site to digitize. We've done a few projects now that we've set up on site at locations, which has given us gives the customer the advantage that they can still access the records quickly if they're needed. Plus, they can aid and advise on how they want their stuff digitized. The actual digitisation project, and I think we can go to next slide. Thanks, April. The actual handling and logistics of a digitisation project, we will give you packing support if it's required. We have our own team and our own vehicles which carry the materials directly from site to our digitisation facility, which makes sure they're secured and carried in a proper way. Our team are trained to look after and care for items at risk, and we make sure that they arrive at the facility in the same condition they were given to us. Once they get to Kettering, we have, of course, environmentally benign storage and also secure storage. Plus, we have, of course, insurance for all this stuff while it's traveling. We also record and have a clear audit trail of what we've taken. Next slide, thanks, April. The digitisation options, as I mentioned, a studio digitisation, we take all your materials into Kettering and we digitise it using our digitisation equipment at Kettering, which is basically high resolution cameras in an overhead copy stand configuration. Or what we can do is bring our cameras and copy stand to your place and set up in an appropriate area and do the same kind of scanning on site. Obviously, it does mean when we do on site that we don't have to move anything. The records stay with you. And also you can supervise, particularly suitable for sensitive collections where you guys can handle them, help our team copy them and make sure they're put back the way you want them to. When the materials do go to Kettering, though, we do offer a lookup service for you. So if you do have inquiries while they're away from your facility, our team can provide the information back to you. Next slide. Thanks, April. Okay, so what we actually do when we digitize, we have our high resolution camera. It goes on our copy stand. Everything's straightened and made legible. We check each image for quality control, file naming consistency, and we provide at the end of the day PDF, TIFF, and JPEG files. And as I said, we deliver all this information back to you via secure hard drive. Next slide, April. That's about where I end, and I now hand over to Nathaniel, and he'll be talking about some transcription and redaction, which is the key to making this stuff useful. Thanks, Nathaniel.
Thanks, John. So yeah, the next step, as John talks about after digitization, is the transcription and redaction side of things. So there's a few things I want to run through with the transcription. Just an overview is, yep, we'll be extracting kind of the different fields from your register and then structuring them into data sets, making it easier for you to search from. And then I will talk a little bit about redaction of sensitive content as well, and preparing the data and the metadata ready for pass-through, which Casper will talk about afterwards. So the first thing that I'll quickly talk about is what we capture. So from your registers, as you know, we'll have a lot of fields for each record, and we'll first go by identifying which field that you want capturing and want transcribing. So general ones will be like displayed here, like the name, date of burial, grave, reference, location, and many more fields. And these could be run over a single page, double page, however your records are recorded. So once we've set kind of these fields, then we'll work in a spreadsheet to structure these and start capturing the data using the digital images that we've digitized. Next slide. So when we're doing that, maybe you'll have some of the information that are sensitive or that you don't want to be shown publicly. Maybe they are they don't comply with data protection regulations, or they don't want them to be shown. So what we can do is identify these columns that you don't want shown, and we can either on the digital image we can add a kind of like a black bar to cover up the specific columns that you don't want, or we could also not record these down into the data as well. This would mean that specific pieces of information will be redacted on the columns, but you could also still have the master dataset file yourself that isn't redacted for private use at the same time. So next slide. So once all this is transcribed and ready to use, then we will structure this and get them ready for metadata use for PassView. So the spreadsheet will be complete, and then we'll make sure all the formatting in the fields are consistent. And this will enable us to kind of really quickly and cleanly put this into PassView and to share this being ready to be shared publicly. So this will enable us to kind of create metadata for individual records or people, and enabling if that record or person are on multiple registers, then they can actually be linked from these multiple registers into this one record. And now once that's actually on there, then you'll be able to filter and report and actually search through these metadata to get the results that you want. And now we'll kind of pass on to Casper, who will talk more about the PassView side.
Thanks, Nathaniel. Thanks, John. And so then it comes on to the access and publishing. So there's sort of three areas that we want to talk about with you today. One of which is the PassView Chronicle system, which is the online access and hosting. So by this platform, it's an online system. So we can upload both the digitized images and the transcribed data, so that you're firstly able to access that content internally, so that you can use that for your business operations day to day. And secondly to that then is the website side of things as well, where you can actually publish content publicly. And as Nathaniel mentioned, perhaps at that stage you want to be able to redact some of the key information that goes out publicly, and potentially even monetize that content. And the other option that we have available is actually an offline record, where we can provide you access to this content directly at the cemetery or other locations. So should anything happen, sort of internet connectivity or anything like that, then there's the ability to also have that sort of on-premise access as well. But what we're going to look closely at today is the PassView Chronicle system itself, and how it links the images and the transcribed data, provides the search functionality across those records, both internally and publicly, and also provides that foundation for the online publishing and potential monetization of those records as well. So the key goals that we're trying to achieve here are obviously to increase the efficiencies within the organization. So by digitizing, you have preserved the content should anything happen to that original format, and by transcribing and uploading to a system like PassView Chronicle, you can then improve those abilities to be able to search the data quickly, and also potentially even provide that public access. So if we jump onto the next slide quickly. So the next part, once the data is in PassView and is available, is then publishing this onto a website. So often is the case that you might not want to publish all of the data that goes into PassView. As Nathaniel mentioned, some of it might be redacted and therefore sensitive, and therefore not published online. But some of the content might also be more recent, and therefore you don't want to publish the entirety of that record as well. So there's the ability within PassView to be able to set parameters based on date of death, date fields and things like that, to be able to actually control when those records transition from internal records to potentially public records, where they can then be searched upon and potentially monetized from there. You've also got the ability to do searches across different collections. So in this case, we have different types of records. So typically you'd find the burial registers, cremation and grave registers as well. We've also done work with purchase grave registers and other content where we can make all of that information and detail firstly searchable, but then secondly also looking at that monetization and revenue side of it as well. A lot of our clients use pay-per-view, so freely accessible to search, but then when they reach the page of the register basically that they're looking for, it would then request that they pay to download that image. Some of our clients are also looking at providing sort of tiered access through subscriptions so that you could do a sort of duration access, perhaps more suitable for research or wider genealogy searching rather than the sort of individual download perhaps that that a lot of our clients use as well. So if we just jump onto the next slide. So a lot of the case with the data, it really comes from a lot of the work that's been done in the earlier two stages. So obviously we need the digital image, that's first and foremost. And from those digital images, we then produce the transcribed data. As Nathaniel mentioned, there is a lot of content that goes into the transcription. We've been digitizing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pages and millions of sort of records for many years now. And during that process, we've sort of experienced and learned a lot of the ways that we can make this data as searchable as possible. We're going to jump into a bit of a live demo in a moment, but to sort of showcase that, some of the examples here give you the ability to be able to further search on that content. So you might benefit from being able to filter between the cemeteries that you manage, for example. You might want to be able to just directly search into a grave or plot area, or potentially you actually want to look for a year or a sort of an exact or sort of a catch-all sort of year as well, if you're not exactly sure of when that year of burial perhaps might be. So through the transcription, we can obviously set your metadata fields up so that you get the most from the website and also the internal systems to be able to find and locate those records going forward. Next slide, please. So before we jump into the demo, we'll just give you a quick sort of run through what typically happens with our website processes. So this is once all the data is within the PassView system, we then have, or you then have the ability to push some or all of that content to a website and potentially monetize that content directly from there. So when we onboard our clients, we typically go through a process of working with them, not only with the digitization and transcription, but then also looking at the website side of things as well. So typically speaking, we would work and brand the website to your existing sort of council or organization's branding. That includes things like the logos, the fonts, the color schemes, and other sort of styling that perhaps we need to incorporate into the website designs. We've talked a little bit about the redaction side of things, but we obviously want to be explicitly clear what data is going publicly and what is not, and that's why we do the redaction on in the first place on the original images, so that there's no errors in that function. And we can also sort of restrict permissions both internally for your users and externally, so that only sort of managers of the collection, for example, would be able to publish records to the website, and therefore avoiding any mistakes there going forward. And there's also the functionality around the publishing and the search and how that works, and how obviously the audience is sort of growing sort of demands on how they search and access records and look things up as well. So we've got some great functionality and ability to be able to sort of filter results and be able to turn those sort of 1-2 million names into a couple of results to be able to find what you're looking for. So I think it's easier to show this in a demonstration. So we'll jump onto that in a moment. And if we go to the next slide, please. And just finally, before we do, and I think we've covered a little bit of this already, but there are lots of different monetization approaches for this content. So a lot of our clients that we work with express that the number one sort of return on investment for these types of projects is the staff staff time, the ability to be able to just go to their computer station and be able to search for a key, search for a name and be able to retrieve that information immediately. Especially with sort of growing working from home and other environments that potentially are being utilized, being able to access that data very quickly and easily in that regard is becoming very sort of sought after and also secure as well in the approach that we use with that. And then, as we mentioned, there's a few different options for them monetizing that content. So the digital download options where people can purchase the page of that record, or alternatively, what some of our audiences are now doing is looking at subscriptions as well. So offering those sort of tiered access levels so that you perhaps can get a sort of access to potentially a whole cemetery's worth of data, perhaps, so that people doing a genealogy search can investigate sort of further some key information on particular areas of research that they might be doing across that. All of those different levels are provided by yourselves, and the tiering of those, what people can access through subscriptions and so on, is set up by yourselves through that process. So next slide. Aha, so we're into the live demo. Let me just quickly switch my screen. So I want to start by showcasing the pass view side. I'm just going to double check that this is being seen. Can you see this, Abel? Yeah, awesome. So we're going to log into the Passview side. As I mentioned, this is Passview is developed by Townsweb Archiving, specialists in digitization, and we have a module within Passview which is called Passview Chronicle, which supports cemeteries and name-based searching. So it's online hosted, as I mentioned, and when you log into the content, you've got the ability to be able to manage the collections directly from the back-end system. So I wanted to just sort of show you a little bit of how this works within the system. As Nathaniel mentioned there, we've got the ability here to be able to upload the full scans as well as the redacted scans. Both of these are a clone of each other, and what that actually allows you to do is to be able to present the redacted scans online publicly, whereas with the full scans, only your internal teams will be able to access those, which you can see here by the hidden eye icon within Passview. So we're not going to look at the full scans in these particular case. We're going to take a quick look at the redacted scans, and in particular the Brandwood Cemetery, Brandwood End Cemetery here. And if we go into the first of those registers that we can see here, this is then what's classed as a collection within Passview. So this is the book, the volume itself. In most cases, this the significance here is actually the individuals and the names that have been transcribed through this volume. So what we typically have is we will have the double page spread that has been digitized, and you can see here that this image is of sort of high quality, very high quality in terms of being able to see the entry numbers and other information. However, not so useful unless this has all been transcribed. So in this particular case, we can see there's about 20 records that are within this first page of this volume. There's also been sensitive information redacted, often the purchaser's name and address and details of that nature. And you can see when we scroll down here on the right-hand side, we have what's classed as linked records. So these records are individuals that have been linked to that particular page within the volume, within this book. So on here, we can actually see that this particular individual has been linked to the page, entry number 15001, which will be the first entry on this record. And you can see all of the information that relates to their record. In this particular case, you've got the day, the month, the year of burial. You can see the section, the grave, and other information. You can also see the cemetery and forename and surname alongside that. If we have a quick look up here, you can actually then see the linked items. And these linked items show both the redacted and also the non-redacted version. So the redacted version is made publicly accessible within the system, and the non-redacted version is then made accessible online. Excuse me, sorry. And you can see here that the non-redacted version is available as well, where you can then download the original image so that if you want to use that, you'd be able to come in and download that image so that you've got that internally to then be able to share or use from there. But if we just go back to the record again, you can see both images are here. This one is publicly accessible. The other is only internally accessible. We know this by the media visibility here, which is ticked on this one, whereas this one here, media visibility is hidden, so it's not showing on the front-end website. To give you a bit of an idea of how the system's sort of structured and used, but more importantly is actually the search and the function that comes up within the search form. So if we just jump in and do the traditional search that everyone does. In fact, before we do, you can see here on this site that we've got 1.5 million records directly linked. You can see that just by searching for Smith forename, we can see that there's 28,000 records. And then off this, we're going to sort of drill down into a particular cemetery, so the Handsworth Cemetery, reducing our results to 1,200 results. If we know the specific year, we can come straight in and do the search. And we reduce the results there to 21. Sorry, excuse me 1 second. And then we receive 21 results in this particular case. If the individual that we were looking for example, is Anne Smith, we can see here that the date of burial is 1926, so over 100 years old, and therefore we only have the full high-res record because there's no reason for the redaction in that particular case. If we also look at the search capabilities here, we can actually search directly into the individual grave number, if you know those grave numbers, and we can also then filter by the cemetery as well so that we get those results. And again, within here, we then return Anne Smith that we were looking for, that we knew was within that particular grave and section, for example, and many more searching functionality within the system where you can apply the fields directly into the search. So if we wanted to see the date, month, and years, for example, we can do so, and they will come up in the search so that you can either extract this information and download it, or you can potentially sort of organize, restructure, and look at this information in a different sort of way to be able to access those results. Just sort of finally to this point, there is the ability then to be able to add existing records. So the approach with this is that once it loads, gives me a bit of time to catch my breath there. The approach with this is that you are actually able to continue to add records. Obviously, there's burials continually going on, and therefore you're actually able to add these records directly into the system as well, obviously updating the registers as you go, and later to that we can then retrieve those volumes, either coming back on site or off site, as John mentioned, and then digitizing those volumes and adding them back into your system so that you've got an accurate and up-to-date system going forward. You can see here some of these are controlled vocabulary, so you can select the cemeteries. Others you need to type in and go from there. And what we'll do now is we'll switch over to the website side of things and just provide a very quick demonstration on the Birmingham City Council front-end website, which we'll showcase on here and bring that all together in the mechanisms that they use for the ability to search across this content. So if we carry out the same search that we were just doing on the front end, I hit search, we can waiting on that. This my internet here, I think, always typical of live demonstrations. So we're doing a search here for the last name of Smith, which was the record that we were looking for. We can see that we've got over 1,000 hits within the site. Again, we can do filtering because we know the cemetery, for example, and be able to filter those down even further. And then, for example, if we know the year, which we are aware of in this particular case, we get those 21 results that we saw earlier. And straight away, we are able to find the Anne Smith record that we were looking for. If we were a little unsure of the year, we do have the functionality to be able to sort of expand those filters, whether it's by year or by month. That can all be preset and populated. And in this particular case, we have Anne Smith's record. You can see a little bit of information is provided at this stage, but the rest of this is available via digital download on the site. So you add the information to your basket. Once in your basket, you can then purchase and go through and download the record on that side. There is a little bit more to discuss on this website side, but hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea. And as you can tell, for some reason, my voice has been fine all day, but struggling now. So I'm going to pass back over to April, and we can open up into any questions as well from there. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Casper. That's great. Right, let me just show my screen again. So thanks, guys. That was brilliant walking us through. That brings us to the end of our main presentation. Now we'd love to open the floor to any questions. So if you haven't already, please pop questions into the Q&A box and we'll see if we've got any through. Even if it's something specific to your organisation, we're happy to talk through any examples. See that we've had any already.
I think, John, we were just chatting about something as well, but actually about the grave depth as well. So I don't know whether it's worth just jumping in and talking about that aspect, John, from the digitisation and from the pass view side.
Yeah, absolutely. We did have a customer who was, the cemetery was full, and they were actually exhuming, or they weren't exhuming actually, they were reburying people on top of in existing graves. So it was critical that they knew the depth of the people already in the grave, so they could work out whether they could actually rebury on top of. And their whole, what they did have to do is they had to notify the original grave owners that they were about to do this. So the data was critical in finding out how deep the people originally buried were and who owned the grave. So they had to physically send a letter by post to the address of the original grave owner before they could actually do that. So our digitisation was saved so much time. They really couldn't have done it without the records and ledgers being digitised. It was and it's an ongoing thing too, because it's a way of utilising space that they didn't have before.
I guess managing those and going through the records to then get all the addresses and try to reach out and do that would be a near impossible task. So yeah, certainly we've come in, help support with that side of things, the transcription and taking that forward. I've seen something else that we were sort of discussing more recently amongst our development team as well. So this product is internally developed by Towns Web Archiving and continually is developed. So if there's any functionalities that you're struggling with within the cemeteries, then obviously, yeah, it would be great to hear those challenges so that we can make sure that our roadmap's aligned with your developments. But one of the topics is that's been mentioned regularly is around AI and the use of sort of AI searching and sort of natural language searching as well. We are very much sort of looking to utilize AI technologies in a secure and safe way, with specifically around the ability to sort of govern those and have good governance around them. But one of the key areas that we're looking to develop more recently, and certainly for large collections of name-based searching and genealogy searching, is the ability to have this natural language search. So asking sort of questions around what happened on these particular days, asking about names and things like that. So it'll be really interesting to see how the data that's held amongst cemeteries can then be utilized within those sort of secure environments for further sort of understanding from there. But I don't know if there's been any more questions, April, come in.
I'm having some trouble accessing the Q&A box currently, actually. I don't know if you can see it.
No, I can't, but maybe we can just include the email address, and if anyone's got any questions following on, we can pick those up directly with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, well, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate your time. Hopefully this has provided a bit of a clearer understanding of how cemetery and crematorium records can be preserved. And just a reminder that this has been recorded. So yeah, we will be sending this out. And if you have any questions, please do get in contact with us. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.